Hi, my name is Ingrid, and I'm here to explain to you why children should not have electronic mobile devices at home. According to New York Times and ABC.net, 98% of American homes with children now have an electronic mobile device, and on average, kids 8 and under, they spend more than 2 hours a day looking at a screen. That is way too much for a child that age, and there can actually be developmental benefits to screen time. I'm going to explain the effects of how electronic mobile devices can affect our brains and how young brains need a lot of extra stimuli to develop, particularly from birth to age 3. And that is what's known as the critical period. It's during this time that the children's neurons are making connections for fundamental skills such as vision, hearing, and language. But these are needs on centuries of human evolution, which have nothing to do with screens. Consider a child watching a video instead of listening to parents read a book. It's a far different experience for the brain. Rather than kids learning to focus and imagine the story the device presents everything to them, so certain cognitive systems become underdeveloped, and when children spend too much time in front of a screen rather than interacting with people, they can have stunted development of the frontal lobe and part of the brain that decodes social interaction. It can become more difficult for children to develop empathy or learn social cues like facial expressions. What's more, the stimuli from a screen can be a live color, sounds, stories, at all super fast paced. It can be sensory overload, releasing stress hormones such as cortisol, and it can also be overactive the brain's reward system and it can also be overactive the addictive hormone dopamine, getting kids used to immediate gratification they wouldn't get in the real world. So most scientists and doctors agree that screen time can either alter young still forming brains, and in some way that can change. Be positive. Take the results from one recent study that exposed young mice 6 hours daily to audio-visual stimuli similar to those found in a video game. After 10 days, the mouse showed signs of hyperactivity, impaired learning, and risk-taking, but the mice also stayed calm in the environment that usually would have stressed them out. Some scientists now argue that screen time can help prepare a child's brain for our increasingly fast-paced, high-stimuli world. So screen time isn't always bad, and it isn't at all created equal either. An educational letter matching game isn't the same as a violent movie, as children can function in all modern life, not only with screens, but in real world. Well, everybody knows that right now this is the age of technology and of media. Everyone you know has an iPad, and it's the iPhone now. It's known all YouTubers on there and everything else nowadays. They usually whip out the iPad for the child, and what kind of impact does that have on a children's development? Well, it has a lot of impact on them, and it's not for the good. Sometimes it can help them with learning numbers and letters, but when you're starting to use these things in place of other ways of learning, then it possesses a problem. We're already in the age where communication, engaging with people face to face is limited because everyone's already texting and emailing. We have to be very aware and very mindful that, when we grow up as parents, we're talking to each other and playing with each other. And you want to be able to provide those opportunities for your children. So if they're playing a game and watching TV, chances are they're not playing with children. And they're not learning common social skills, because everything that your child learns is through experience, through doing things with their peers, and also through observation. So if they're watching you on your phone all day, you might think that, well, that's the way you do it these days. And you also want to remember that everything you do impacts your child's development. As well as, there are two things to note here. One is, if your child is playing on the video game and watching TV, they're not outside in the playground and they're not engaging with their friends. They're not playing, and they should be. And two is that the impact of these toys have on your child can be significant, because it's a lot of input, it's a lot of visual stimulation, and they're not able to be attentive to people because they're so used to looking at a screen rather than a person. So providing the opportunity for your child to use an iPad may not be determinal. You can have them playing a game for about 10 to 20 minutes a day, whatever time of the day it is, and that's fine. But once you start to introduce that at a mealtime when you're out at a restaurant, consider that this child would always be associated with the iPad at the restaurant, and they will never be able to have a meal and talk to you about their day because they'll just automatically assume that they're sitting at a restaurant having the iPad. Remember that. Thank you for watching, and that concludes why children should not have a mobile device at home.